All right, Commissioner Hess is walking in. It's 2 p.m. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order now. So apparently our presenter for the first workshop has not made it here yet. So
They're lost, but they've been found. So
we're gonna just kick it off with the MSBU. Keep you guys from waiting through all this. And David, you want to take it away?
yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sandy Walker from GSG is here, and she's going to lead us through the workshop, the item. This was, we contracted with GSG earlier in the year, or excuse me, end of last year to perform the study. The last study that was done was about 2 years ago, so it was time for an update. Out of that study, the board had requested that we add an additional layer to accommodate for sheds, etc. And you'll see that in the report. And bee houses, and so we've got that in there. We've taken care of all of that, as well as it went ahead and reapportioned based on the previous year's fire calls. So without further ado, Sandy, it's all up to you.
You got lucky tonight, getting in front of that other group.
Hear that?
It's beautiful weather we're having. Sandy Walker with Government Services Group.
Yeah, give me just a second.
I know, it was just a minute ago.
Just bad.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Keep you on your toes.
Randy's cold.
I was wet, Randy.
Oh,
Thank you. My
dry now?
blanket.
Are you dry?
No, it's fine.
So you thought you'd have to sit here for 2 hours, didn't you? You're lucky that they will wait. What are we waiting on?
Jess,
Jessica's
pulling it up.
Hurry up, Jessica.
She's going to hit you, Randy.
Okay, Sandy Walker with Government Services Group. I'm here to present our study. We updated your fire assessment program. We were also involved in the original program from 2010, so we helped you with that. So do I do the clicker or you do it?
I can do it.
Okay, all right. So basics, what is a fire assessment? Simple, it's a charge imposed against property to pay for fire services. It does not include those costs associated with your EMS. It's a home rule revenue source, so therefore you have to meet case law requirements. There are 2 primary case law requirements. One, it has to have a special benefit to property, which is why we don't include the EMS, because it does not have a special benefit to property. And then 2, it has to be fairly and reasonably apportioned. And so that's what we did. We looked at how to fair and reasonably apportion the cost. So what methodology did we use? We used the historical demand methodology, which is court-tested and approved. It's the same methodology you have now. It's most widely adopted. And the reason it's called the historical demand methodology is because the call volume is what drives the call proportion. So we look at your call data. It's based on initial response, so we treat all calls equally. And there's one rate for all single-family and multifamily dwelling structures. The mic keeps going in and out. This methodology was looked at in the Desert Area versus Boynton Beach case and upheld by the 4th District Court of Appeals. So the data component, the assessment study includes 4 major components. We look at first your service delivery. We look at what type of services do you provide in the county, and you provide ALS with transport. So that tells me you have an EMS component. So we have to do something to take out the EMS part. We also look at your apparatus and your fire flow that's available, and based on NFPA standards and the fire flow that you have available, it's unlimited. So your non-residential square foot has no cap. It's unlimited. And then we look at your benefit area. Where do you provide services for fire? And you provide services to the entire county, so that's the methodology that we've done. The second component is your budget. And again, since you do have an EMS component, we have to look at the fire versus the EMS cost. And then we developed a 5-year accessible budget for the fire portion only. The third component is your cost apportionment, and again, that's looking at your calls and the history of where who's demanding the services, your fire services. And then the fourth component is the parcel analysis as to what type of units, what type of parcels that you have in your county. And we look at the building uses, the property uses, the dwelling units, the square footages, and your land acreage. So the budget. One more? Yeah. So the budget, we looked at 4 different budget scenarios, and again, we only included the fire protection portion when we were looking at it, and we looked at more on the status quo. Change no services, no adding of services, just to maintain exactly what you have now, would be about $2,121,000. Then we looked at some enhanced services, and this is based on your strategic plan, your 2020 to 2025 strategic plan that you have, and we looked at scenario 2, and that was adding additional personnel, and it would be about $2.4 million. The additional staffing would consist of 6 more positions in this year coming up, the 21-22, and a fire inspector position. So 6 more positions would mean 3 more people per shift because you have 3 shifts. And then adding another 6 more positions in 24-25. Did you have a question or?
3 more people per shift with 6 people? With 3 shifts?
Mm-hmm. 2 more per shift, sorry. 2 more per shift, for 3, yeah, sorry. And then scenario 3 adds on to scenario 2, and it has an engine replacements for engine 12 and 17, and that would be about $2.7 million.
David, that's versus paying it out of 1 cent sales tax, right? That's right.
Correct.
Sorry.
And then scenario 4 is scenarios 2 and 3 plus additional station replacements. So, and that would be about $3.2 million. So we've got rate scenarios for all of these budget scenarios. So then this is the key to your apportionment methodology. This is the historical demand. So we looked at your call data for calendar year 2020, the most updated call data that you have, and we looked to see who's demanding the services. So based on what we did is we removed all the EMS, we removed the EMS cost, and we removed the EMS calls, and then we also removed the non-specific. Anything that went to a roadway accident or something that's not tied to a specific property type use, we remove them. So based on the calls that were left, 73.25% went to single family or went to residential. So therefore, whatever portion of the budget you want to fund, it has to, 73.25 has to be funded through the residential rate category. Your vacant parcel was 9.5%. Your institutional, which institutional includes things such as schools, government, nonprofits, things like that, is 7%. Industrial warehouse, which would include your sheds or barns and different things like that, is 0.5%, and your commercial is 9.75%. So whatever budget that you want to fund, it has to be broken down in these pieces in order to keep you legally defensible.
That doesn't account for the, we can't tax the schools, obviously.
No, and we'll get to that. So the difference between what you have now and what we're proposing is the non-residential rate categories. Right now you just have residential, non-residential, and vacant land, so we're adding additional layers in the non-residential rate categories. So then we have to look at what's fair and reasonable, how to charge these for each rate category, and we're going to continue to do it the same way we do now. We're going to charge the residential based on a dwelling unit, and that would be for single family, multifamily, and mobile homes. Then your non-residential, your commercial would also include your RV parks because statutorily you have to treat them like other commercial businesses. And what we do is we assign a square footage to each space or a square footage to the mobile homes in each space and charge it based on a square footage. And then industrial warehouse and institutional. And then your vacant land is again going to be charged, continue to be charged on a per acre basis, but we're going to a minimum of 1 acre. So you've got some of these very small, they're still going to be charged a minimum of 1 acre. So now that we have all the components, then it's a matter of math. So if 73.25% of your calls are going to residential, then you have to fund $2,360,000 of the, we use the maximum scenario, so we use scenario 4, the $3.2 million. So you have $2,360,000 divided by your 13,424 dwelling units that are in the county to get a rate of $176 per dwelling unit. Your commercial would be 14 cents per square foot. Industrial warehouse is 2 cents per square foot. Institutional is 15 cents per square foot. And then your vacant land would be 94 cents per acre. And these would be the maximum that you could charge. So now I've got some other rate scenarios. So these are based on all four, and it compares you what your current rates are. Currently, you're $102 based on scenario 1, based on the update of the historical demand. Who's driving your, who's using your resources for your fire department? If you just keep everything status quo and only generate the same amount of revenue, your residential is going to go from 102 to 116. But right now, your commercial is 11.93 cents, and it would go down to 9 cents a square foot. Industrial warehouse would be 1 cent a square foot. Institutional would be 10 cents a square foot, and your vacant land would go up to 62 cents an acre.
Just due to reapportionment, right?
That's due to the reapportionment only. So this is generating the same amount of revenue, and it's just reapportioning. And you have a lot more, you've got a lot more development than you had since 2010. So it makes sense that it would shift some, and this is how it's shifted. So then you have the option, which is right now, we've applied the same policy direction that you have right now, your government properties. You can charge them and send them a bill, but you can't lien their property, so you have a collection problem. So right now, you buy them down. It's a policy decision, and you fund it through the general fund or some other available revenue source. I don't think you're at 100%, so, or maybe you are. But, so we tell you what the impact would be. So out of funding the $2.2 million, your total buy down would be $371,000. Government is $277,000, and then what we'd call your institutional tax exempt. This is a two-prong exemption, so they have to meet 2 prongs in order to qualify. The parcel has to be wholly tax exempt, and then the building must be, or the parcel must be of institutional use. So where you have a church that has the church building and then pastor's house behind it, the church building would meet that 2-prong test because it is wholly tax exempt, it's owned by the church, and it is of institutional use. The residential where the pastor lives, his house, does not meet that 2-prong test, so they would still pay for the house because it's of residential use, not of institutional use. So the impact to that would be $52,000. Then there's an ag exemption, and that's a statutory exemption, that there's certain criteria that if it's a vacant ag parcel, you cannot charge it for fire. Or if it has a non-residential building on it that's of $10,000 value or less, you cannot charge it, or pole barns you cannot charge. So that's statutorily driven, and that's $42,000. So out of the $2.2 million, if you choose to make the policy decision continuing to go forward with what you do now and exempt government, and institutional tax exempt and the ag exemption, you would net about $1,750,000. That's the status quo. You would not get any additional enhanced services. I believe staff is going to recommend scenario 2 with adding the additional personnel, which would mean residential would be $131 per dwelling unit. Commercial is 11 cents, so that's still going down 0.93 cents per square foot. Industrial warehouse 1 cent, institutional 11 cents, and your vacant land would go from 22.39 cents to 70 cents per acre. That would net you about $2 million after all your buy downs.
The buy down is general fund supplementing the MSBU, right?
That's right.
We don't have to exempt churches.
No.
You don't have to. But
You don't have to, but you have. You have.
You have.
Don't do that?
And like I say, it's a two-prong, so it's only the church building in and of itself, not anything that's owned by the nonprofit.
They got money.
From Smith Creek to...
So then scenario 3, with the additional personnel and the apparatus replacement, residential would be $1.49, commercial 12 cents, industrial warehouse 2 cents, institutional 13 cents, and your acreage was 79 cents, and that would net you about $2.25 million. Scenario 4, that's with the personnel, the apparatus, and some station replacement and upgrades. $176 per dwelling unit, 14 cents for commercial square footage, 2 cents for industrial warehouse, 15 cents for institutional, and 94 cents per vacant land, and that would net you about $2,660,000. So what's the implementation schedule? You're right now scheduled to adopt your amended and restated initial assessment resolution, because when you update, you're going to have to put the new updated apportionment methodology, so you'll adopt another amended and restated initial assessment resolution on July 12th. Then you'll submit to the property appraiser, because your fire assessment is on the trim notice, which saves you a lot of money from having to send out first-class notices. They would be mailed out August 17th. And then you would make your final decision at a public hearing on September 7th, when you would adopt your final assessment resolution and make the final decision. Now keep in mind, just like when you set your trim, whatever rates that you decide are the maximum rates. So if you say we're going to stay status quo now, you don't have an option of coming back in September and going up. You can start higher and go down, but you can't do it the opposite way.
That's on the trim notice, whatever we initially set it at, that we can lower later is still.
Exactly.
Same as ad valorem.
Yeah, and then whatever rates you do adopt at your September 7th public hearing, that would go on the tax bill that would be collected with the November 2021 tax bill. So policy direction that I believe staff is going to ask for, what rates do you want? Do you want to do what they're recommending, scenario 2, or something different? Exemptions, do you want to continue to have the same exemption policies that you have now, government, institutional, tax exempt, and the ag? And any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Was number 2, was that when we talked about those for the raises for the fire department too, was that?
We factored all that in, and the staff is recommending number 2, one that provides an increase for increase in salaries, as well as the biggest thing is the additional personnel that it adds. But also, eventually we'll need to go to option number 3, but right now we're not sure with with us losing the jail bed. We need about a year to see how this shakes out with the sheriff's office getting 1 cent sales tax money for trucks. We don't want to overstep too quick. So we want to wait and just kind of balance it out and see how that goes, and then we'll come back to you guys either next year or the next.
The difference between option 2 and option 3?
Option 3 is that provides for apparatus. That's right, 149.
Versus 130.
136.
630. Commercial still goes.
131.
31, excuse me.
Commercial still goes down a little.
Correct.
Right.
Even with scenario 3,
That's right.
it goes down.
No, it goes up 0.007 cents a square foot.
Because, I mean, the more money we can not spend out of 1 cent sales tax for capital equipment, I mean, I just assume just my opinion, option 3, I mean, it's still not a lot of money to pay for a year, but I guess that's up to the board.
Have we, this new staff that's coming on, do we have the equipment for them to operate?
Lou?
Yes.
Yes.
So basically would be for the raises for them and getting 6 new staff members on option 2 for them. And option 3 added 2 trucks, is that
It's
what?
replacement for 2 engines.
And the big thing about that, and again, option 2 is also fine with me, but we wouldn't be spending 1 cent sales tax, and we can use that on other stuff. Under this scenario, that MSBU funds fire, it funds their equipment too, not just the people.
So we're kind of weaning off of 1 cent sales tax.
That's what I'd like to do,
Partially with.
Partially.
especially with losing the jail bed revenue. Especially, because Jared was buying vehicles with that, right?
No, was he buying it from that? I thought he was buying it out of the... He was buying it from the, inmate, his own fund, inmate fund. But now that's switching over to the 1 cent sales tax. And we're gonna need to hit this, yes.
I'd rather hit it now. Might as well get people mad at you once, twice.
So when do the trucks need replacement money? I know the money will be there to replace them, but I assume it's going to be replaced either way, whether it be from this fund or the 1 cent sales tax.
Yes.
Right now, fire truck wise, we're pretty squared away for probably about another year, but we're gonna need to replace our main career engine. That truck runs really hard. We put a lot of miles on that truck. And so we just keep rotating them down, to the less busy stations. The challenge with the 1 cent is if we throw the ambulance, those have to stay on the 1 cent.
Ambulance have to stay on 1 cent.
We're looking at about, with the increases, probably $340, $350 for a whole ambulance. So
What's the truck, what's replacement on the truck?
fire trucks,
Yeah.
about 500,000, and then we need an aerial, which is gonna be probably about 1.2 million.
And we're looking at, for the main service truck, instead of purchasing those, we're gonna lease them in the future, because we put so many miles on them and then rotate them and do them like our graders. It's to where they rotate out every 4 or 5 years, and we rotate them out of our stock.
Or we could not charge churches.
Or- And that's, I told you today, my main thing.
Stink out of it.
My main thing is to make sure that we had the personnel for the fire department and the raises for them. That's where I stand on it, whether it's option 2 or 3, no, either could, with either one, but,
And again, I like 3 because it's paying for itself. It's acting more as an enterprise fund. The MSBU is paying for the equipment and the personnel. But I'm not gonna throw my sucker in the dirt over it, so whatever way this board decides is fine.
I agree with you on option 3.
all right, we'll present option 3 as, and then we can always go down from
And
there.
I want to clear that I want to exempt churches. I do want to exempt churches.
Annette is scared that St. Peter's gonna kick her out when she gets there, if he taxes church.
She suggested to go ahead and charge them the churches. I don't agree with that. I think they should not be charged.
We did do corrections on 8 of them today for the parsonage.
Yeah.
That should have been being charged and weren't. And so we did do that, but I got items every time that I wouldn't.
And this also fixes, it fixes the people like Owen Bellamy that are paying a huge amount on a barn. There's, and my Thomas's, theirs will go down. There's a lot of people that have agricultural buildings that are paying through the nose.
Yep, sure.
Earl's paying more for his B-house than he is for his house.
Well, if I've got a head nod that you want, if you're in general, y'all are okay with going with 3, we can always go down, and that's what we'll put in the budget.
Go for 3.
Not a big difference between the
No.
two. And anything we can kind of peel off at 1 cent, I think would be good.
And
Very good.
that's for a whole year too, so.
Okay, we got it.
In the exemptions, maintaining current.
Yes.
Unless you think you can get the school board to pay.
Nah,
We're just playing the shell game, that's right.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
bet on that.
no. All right, is there any more questions on the, MSBU?
Anyone from the audience like to come up and questions, comments, anything? If not,
All right, Jessica, would you, change up your slides real quick?
Y'all got real lucky. Otherwise you'd be here.
Yes, you did.